Hi, I'm Nanci Smith, the divorce lawyer who wants you to emerge from your divorce process healthy and strong, not bitter and resentful. In this episode, we'll cover the basics of child support. Child support is the amount of money that your state legislature has determined is the minimum amount of money needed to pay support for your children, given the amount of money that you each earn. It also takes into account the number of overnights a parent exercises in accordance with a parenting order. Usually, the higher the number of shared overnights, the lower the child support figure. Most states have a child support calculator online or available to download. I encourage you to research your child support guideline so that you have an idea of the amount of child support you may be entitled to receive or which you may be expected to pay. You can enter your information into the calculator to get a rough idea about how much you might owe or how much you might receive. If your situation is complex, then be sure to get some guidance from an attorney or from your state's Office of Child Support. The guideline calculation is the minimum amount of support required. There are rules about deviating from the guidelines. If you think the guidelines are too low, then you can ask the court for more child support. If you think the guidelines are too high, then you can also ask to lower the support. The court will consider a variety of factors when assessing whether or not to deviate from the guidelines. Usually, they consider factors like your incomes, resources, household expenses, whether a new partner or other person is contributing to your living expenses, whether there are any special education or medical needs for the children or a parent, extraordinary travel expenses to exercise contact with the kids, or some other extenuating circumstance that makes application of the guidelines unfair. Health insurance costs for the kids are also taken into consideration, as are daycare expenses. So you might want to consider who has the most cost-effective plan for the children moving forward. Usually, you will need to provide lots of details about your financial information. Most states have their own form for financial disclosures, so you can look that up on your state's judiciary website. You should expect to share your most recent tax returns, all schedules, W-2s and K-1s, your last 4 pay stubs, the cost of health insurance for the children, and the cost for daycare. Also, if you have any additional dependents, there's often a place to include that information as well on the guidelines. The courts take child support very seriously. If you fail to pay your court-ordered child support, then you can be held in contempt. You can lose your driver's license. You could have your federal or state income tax refund intercepted. And if you're given a couple of chances to make it right and you still refuse to pay your court-ordered child support, you could go to jail for contempt in very extreme circumstances. Let's talk about what child support is for, because sometimes there are misconceptions about its purpose and its use. Child support is money that is paid to the parent who earns less and has the child more. It is money to be used by that parent in any way that parent deems appropriate. Just because you pay it doesn't mean you can control how it is spent. Sometimes the basic child support payment covers major items like a portion of the housing expense and a portion of the food expense and other household costs, as well as items specifically for the child, such as clothing. So it's important to understand that child support is not limited just to the items that you purchase for the child. It's also important to keep in mind that child support is not intended to cover all of the expenses of having children. As you know, kids are expensive. There are many costs associated with having children, and they are not just limited to food, clothing, and shelter. Usually, you'll have to have additional expenses for things like lessons and sports equipment and tutors, school photos, lunches, and other extracurricular activities. So you'll need to discuss these extra expenses with the other parent and agree in advance how to best share those costs so that your children don't suffer because you are getting divorced. Ask yourself, am I prepared for the child support conversation? I'm Nanci Smith, wishing you a calm heart, clear mind, and a healthy divorce.